All right. So it's time to continue our reading journey, right? So now we're gonna go through reading Cambridge 15 test, I think 3, yeah, and reading passage 3 as well. So let's see what we can do, right? It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be complicated, but it's gonna be interesting, right? All right, now I think you should be able to see the screen. And here we go. Here we go. Once again, right? We don't typically read the passage yet. Yeah, first always take a look at the questions, what kind of questions we have. And as you can see, we have again 3 different sets of questions. With the first one being sentence ending, right? So we need to match the incomplete sentence with its proper ending, right? So we need to find a proper ending, which is not the most complicated, but it is, I think, in my opinion, is the trickiest task of all the reading tasks that I've ever had to do in my life. So let's see what we can do. Then what we have? Then we have the summary. Yeah, I love this kind of summaries because if you know grammar well, if you're good with the logical thinking, yeah, and if you have good reading skills, then you can just put the words without actually reading the whole paragraph, right? Or the passage. But we'll try both, right? So we'll try to guess and then we'll try to read and then see what we can do with that. And then we have multiple choice questions. Yeah, multiple choice questions are not that complicated. It's easy to locate and it's not that difficult to answer. So we'll see what we can do, right? All right. So I'll probably start with this one because we haven't discussed the strategies for this yet. So let's see the strategies, right? So we always first thing that you should do is read the stem, right? So read this incomplete sentence, right? Not options. Well, yet, yeah. So we read the incomplete statements, incomplete statements, and need to understand what we need, what kind of ending we need, right? So what is missing here? Maybe that's an object, maybe it's a verb that is missing, right? Or certain other things that are quite important. So, and then we need to think of synonyms, and how to paraphrase the stem. How to paraphrase the stem, yeah? Well, looking for keywords, why looking for keyword might not work here is that the stem is usually, well, the whole sentence is usually very paraphrased, yeah? It is very paraphrased in the text, so it is quite difficult. It would be quite difficult to find it unless you really understand the meaning. So our goal here is to actually understand the meaning of that particular chunk, yeah, of that particular sentence, and then try to read the passage, yeah, read the passage, well, and then come back and try to match the options with the stem, right? And the normal sentence, the correct sentence will feel very natural, very cohesive, very coherent, right? So it's gonna flow smoothly, right? And if you're a very experienced reader, then it wouldn't be a big deal for you to find. But if you are not a person who is actually reading or reading on a daily basis or not reading at all, then you might struggle with this sort of tasks a little bit. But let's see what we can do here, right? Okay. So since it's kind of complicated to find, complicated to locate, let's locate at least this one. So we have this phylogenetic analysis of Little Red Riding Hood, right? Phylogenetic analysis, this is very specific term. It's hard to paraphrase, so we can find that in the text and take a look. We have a number, yeah, and the numbers are usually, well, you cannot usually paraphrase a number. So phylogenetic and 58. Let's just find it, yeah. Little Riding Hood, okay. Okay. I don't see 58 anywhere here. Okay, so 58 here. And yeah, phylogenetic analysis. So I think the answers will be scattered somewhere here. Yeah, somewhere in this part of the text, yeah. Might be here as well, but I'm not sure yet. Then what method did Jamie Tehrani use to test his idea about fairy tales? Methods and Jamie Tehrani. So they're using his full name. So it's highly likely to be in that part where the full name is used as well. I mean, it's just my guess, right? So here's his full name, Jamie Tehrani, and the method or maybe technique should be used. Should be written somewhere here. Method, technique, maybe means, or what else we have? Approach, maybe. So yeah, the answer is somewhere here, somewhere in this part. Oh, I see the technique. I see the technique. I see approach. Then what else? The analysis, which is also, well, method. Oh, here we go, the method. Yeah, so yeah, the answer must be in this part again. All right, then when discussing Tehrani's view, Jack Zipes, right? We need to find this Jack Zipes. Jack, where is Jack? You know, when you search for the names, yeah, names are usually start with a capital letter. So just look at all the capitals, right? So A, O, F, right? Do not scan the whole text, just look at the capitals. So we need JP, so something that Zipes, right? Oh yeah, Jack Zipes, yeah. See, I just looked at the capitals and I just found this Z, yeah. All right, so the answer must be here. What else we have? Why Tehrani referred to Chinese and Japanese fairy tales? Chinese and Japanese, right? So it's gotta be after Zipes. Oh yeah, I see Chinese and Japanese. All right, found that. Then what does Matthias Classen believe about fairy tales? Again, Classen. All right, here you go. Classen, right. So we basically highlighted the parts where we possibly can find answers. So let us start then with the complicated thing, yeah? All right, so let us read again the stem, not the options yet. In fairy tales, and yeah, one more moment. These are usually in line with the text, so it makes it somehow easier to find, yeah? They usually go in order of the text, so it's gonna be fine. Just like true, false, not given, yes, no, not given, multiple choice, they usually go in line with the text. Like a summary and so on and so forth. Okay, in fairy tales, details of the plot. So in fairy tales, details of the plot. So they will definitely talk about the details of the plot of the perhaps certain events in the fairy tales, yeah? Then Tehrani, again, we get this Tehrani guy. Tehrani rejects, so he kind of says no, right? So he rejects the idea that the useful lessons for life in fairy tales. So you see, there is a certain idea, yeah, there is a certain idea that there are useful lessons in fairy tales, but he rejects it. He's like, no, these ideas are not useful, or maybe he'll say that something is wrong with those ideas, right? And he rejects that. So this is the important thing. Then various theories about social significance of fairy tales. Various theories. So something would be about those various theories. Yeah, about some notions, about some ideas, about some insights maybe, or about some hypotheses. Various theories about social significance of fairy tales, social importance, or social essence, or social what? Yeah, I think importance would fit the best of fairy tales. So those theories, something happened to the theories, right? And we need to know them. That insights into the development of fairy tales. Basically, how fairy tales were developed or created or evolved. Yeah. So something similar to that, I suppose. And all the fairy tales analyzed by Tekrani. All the fairy tales. So how many fairy tales he analyzed and what happened with those fairy tales, yeah? And then we can actually quickly skim the options, but I would not waste my time on that. And once I hit the spot with the fairy tales, right, and the details of the plot of those fairy tales, I will definitely read the options, but not now, yeah? So I suppose we get started then, right? Okay. So people of every culture tell each other fairy tales, but the same story often takes a variety of forms in different parts of the world. In the story of Little Red Riding Hood that European children are familiar with, a young girl on the way to see her grandmother meets a wolf and tells him where she's going. The wolf runs on ahead and disposes of the grandmother. What a terrible story. Then gets into bed dressed into grandmother's clothes to wait for Little Riding Hood. You may think you know the story, but which version? Yes, I got that idea in mind that I know the story, right? Because that's Krasная Шапочка, yeah. But as you see, like we have different versions of the same story. In some versions, the wolf swallows up the grandmother, while in other it locks her in a cupboard. Well, it's a really childish story, right? Locking cupboard. So I would definitely go for something like more horrific, like swallowing or eating alive, right? Okay. So some stories, in some stories, Red Riding Hood gets the better of the wolf on her own, while in other, by the way, I love this one. I love this structure. Gets the better of the wolf, right? Can get rid of the wolf, right? Well, in others, a hunter, a woodcutter, hears her cries and comes to her rescue. All right, so it's nothing about the plot of fairy tales, right? It is about the plot of the same one fairy tale with different version. So nothing is really matching this one. And we don't have anything about phylogenetic because we haven't get there yet. And nothing about Jamie Tehrani yet. So we just keep reading, right? Then the universal appeal of this tales, the universal appeal of these tales is frequently attributed to the idea that they contain cautionary message. Cautionary message. In the case, wait. I think I missed something. But we'll get there. They contain cautionary message in the case of Little Red Riding Hood, to listen to your grandmother and avoid talking to strangers. So that's a cautionary message, right? That's a message that is like that is proposed basically by those fairy tales, right? I think yes, the idea of useful lessons. Yeah, so we're getting close here. That means, yeah, I said that I missed this part, but we'll get there. Let us finish 28 and then we'll come back and try to finish 27. That happens, you see. Then it might be what we find interesting about the stories is that it's It got the survival relevant information in it, says anthropologist Jamie Tehrani at this university, but his research suggests otherwise. Yeah, you see, his research is rejecting the idea, saying like, no, useful lessons are not important, maybe, I don't know. Then he says, we have this huge gap in our knowledge about the history and prehistory of storytelling, and blah, blah, blah. So I think this part is not relevant to what we need right now. So let's read this part, right? The Rani rejects the idea that useful lessons for life in fairy tales. In fairy tales, now we can read the options. All right, let me find the eraser. Okay. May be provided through methods in biological research. No, they didn't really mention that. Then the Quran rejects the idea of the useful lessons for life in fairy tales are the reason for their survival. Perhaps it's the best match so far. It's the best match so far, but I'm not sure yet. So let me put B for now. Yeah, but let's keep reading. Tehrani rejects the idea that useful lessons for life in fairy tales show considerable global variation. No, he didn't mention that, and he's not rejecting the idea of useful lessons because of global variation. Contain animals which transform to become humans. The useful lessons cannot contain, well, they can contain animals in metaphorical meaning, but it's not the point here. Then useful lessons for life in fairy tales were originally spoken rather than written. They haven't talked about it yet and have been developed without factual basis. The useful lessons, fairy tales, have been developed without factual basis, and he rejects that idea. I think it doesn't really make sense, and the B is only option that actually does, because take a look here again. The universal appeal of these fairy tales is frequently attributed to the idea that they contain cautionary message. Universal appeal, so everyone likes those tales. And why we like those tales? Because there is an idea, right? There is a certain established notion that they contain cautionary messages, yeah, useful lessons, like listen to your mother. But his research suggests otherwise. So it's not because of the cautionary messages. It's not because of that. So it like we are attracted to those fairy tales not because of the cautionary message, right? Because his research suggests something else. Yeah. So I think that B is matching, but we'll get there. And I think I missed this point in fairy tales. I think it must be somewhere beginning. Yeah. People of every culture tell each other fairy tales, now all the fairy tales, but the same story, the same plot, you see, the same plot often takes a variety of forms in different parts of the world. A variety of forms in different parts of the world, yeah? So details of the plot, yeah, forms of the story show considerable global variation, yeah, because they are different in different parts of the world, yeah? So world, global, different variation, yeah? So here we go, right? So you see, it's these smartly paraphrased, I would say. I would give them that. All right. So far, so good, I believe. Then we have this one, yeah? We have this huge gap in our knowledge about the history and prehistory of storytelling. Despite the fact that we know this genre is an incredibly ancient one, he says, that hasn't stopped anthropologists, folklorists, and other academics devising theories to explain the importance of fairy tales. See, now they talk about the theories, that they make those theories. But how do they make theories, right? Because we have the huge gap, he says, right? We have a huge gap in the knowledge about the history and prehistory of that. But still, people, and despite the fact, right, that like we know that this genre is very very ancient, yeah, it is very old, and we still have this huge gap in our knowledge because we don't know how human beings develop this idea of telling fairy tales, yeah. But people like anthropologists, folklorists, and other academics, they're still making those theories, right? So let's now go back. So various theories about the social significance, I think it's, I saw it's here, explain the importance of fairy tales in human society. You see, importance of fairy tales in human society, societal importance, social significance. So various theories about the social significance of fairy tales may be provided through methods biological research. No, not yet. Other reasons for their survival. No, I think 28 would be that. C is done. Contain animals. No, theories do not contain animals. Theories are made by professors. Yeah. Theories were originally spoken rather than written. No, we don't have any information on that. And various theories have been developed without factual basis. Yeah, this might be the best fit. Yeah, why is that? Because we lack factual historic knowledge. Yeah, that is the problem. And despite this problem, people like anthropologists, folklorists, and academics, they still devise theories to explain the importance. They still like make those theories to champion for the fairy tales, yeah. So yes, now Tehrani has found a way to test these ideas, borrowing a technique from evolutionary biologists. All right, so now we're getting to this phylogenetic analysis. To work out the evolutionary history, development, and relationship on groups of organisms, biologists compare the characteristics of living species in a process called phylogenetic analysis. Tehrani has used the same approach to compare related versions of fairy tales to discover how they have evolved and which elements have survived the longest. So you see, he's using this technique to compare related versions of fairy tales to know how those fairy tales were evolving and which elements specifically survived for the longer time, yeah. And Tehrani's analysis focused on Little Red Riding Hood and its many forms, which include another Western fairy tale known as Wolf and the Kids. Checking for the variants of these two tales and similar stories from Africa, East Asia, and other regions, he ended up with 58 recorded from oral tradition. See, from oral tradition, yeah? So those stories were mostly spoken orally, yeah? Once his phylogenetic analysis has established that they were indeed related, he used the same method to explore how they have developed and altered over time. Basically, how they were developed and changed, yeah? So you see, like he studied the Little Red Riding Hood in different forms, and he found many, many forms from all over the world. Yeah, and he collected 58 stories which were recorded from oral tradition, right? So those are like traditional stories that were not written by some poets or like writers or whatsoever. So insights into the development of fairy tales. I think we can use A here, insights into development of fairy tales may be provided through methods used in biological research. You know why? Because, well, he used this biological research to understand how those fairy tales were developed, yeah? Let's take a look at this part of the paragraph, right? Tehrani has used the same approach to compare related versions. The same approach. What kind of approach? Biological approach, right? That biologists use to compare related versions of fairy tales to discover how they have evolved, they have developed, and which elements survived the longest, right? So I think we can easily put A here, yes, straight. So here we go. Here we go. Insight into development of fairy tales may be provided through methods used in biological research, which is phylogenetic analysis. All right, so A done, F done, B more or less done. Then all the fairy tales, right? All the fairy tales analyzed by Tehrani. So he analyzed 58 fairy tales. What do we have? All the fairy tales are the reason for their survival. Doesn't make sense. Then contain animal which transformed to become humans. Maybe, but is it really mentioned here that he analyzed all the fairy tales and those fairy tales include those crazy transformations? Yeah, I don't think so. Then were written, were originally spoken rather than written. You see, were originally spoken rather than written. So we can straight away put E here. Why? Because he ended up with 58 stories recorded from oral traditions, right? So traditionally, originally, they were spoken, right? Orally. Like orally means with the mouth, yeah? So yeah, here we go. Here we go. I think we nailed it, I think we nailed it, but we'll double check. We'll double check B later. We'll double check B later. Now let's take a look at this phylogenetic analysis. So Tehrani used technique from evolutionary biology to find out if something existed among 58 stories from around the world. Can we put ending if ending existed among the stories? Not really. Can we put events? More or less. Can we put morning if warning existed? Maybe, but it doesn't fit logically. Can we put links? If links existed, yes, I think we can actually put links because, well, those 58 stories should be somehow connected, right? Records, if records existed, doesn't make sense. If variations existed, maybe, yeah, could be variations as well. Horror, doesn't make sense. People, no. Plot, well, each story has a plot, so it will for sure exist. He doesn't need to use evolutionary biology to ask if the story has a plot. So without the plot, there is no story. So it's either links or variations, in my opinion. Let's take a look. Let's take a look and read carefully the sentence before or after those 58 stories. Okay. So you see, once his phylogenetic analysis had established that they were indeed related. Well, related means somehow linked, somehow connected, yeah? Like relatives, yeah? So you're connected with your relatives. You have links with your relatives, right? Like you have this biological blood connection to the relatives, right? So you are related to them. Here's the same, right? And he wanted to check if there were any links among those stories. Were they actually related to each other? So we put D. Okay. He also wanted to know which aspects of the stories had fewest something, as he believed these aspects would be the most important ones. The most important ones, fewest, maybe smallest, or maybe least, or less, or few, or fewer. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. First, he tested some assumptions about which aspects of the story alter least as it evolves, indicating their importance. You see, altered least. Alter means change. Or another synonym for that would be variations. Yeah, variety, from the word variety. So he also wanted to know which aspects of the stories had fewest variations, yeah, as he believed this aspect would be the most important ones, yeah, because he indicated the importance of those parts that didn't change, yeah. So he was looking for those that didn't change or altered least, yeah. All right, so contrary, so we can eliminate F as well. Contrary to the belief, he found that something that were, you see, now we need to put only plural, so it's either events or records or maybe people included in the story tended to change over time, and that the middle of the story seemed no more important than the other parts. The middle of the story seemed no more important than other parts. Now let's take a look, right? Let's carefully read here. So folklorists believe that what happens in the story is more central to the story than characters in it. That visiting a relative only to be met by a scary animal in disguise is, or disguise, I think it's disguise, disguise. I need to double check that one, you know? It means in anonymity, yeah? More fundamental than whether there is a terrible blah, blah, blah. However, Tehrani found no significant difference in the rate of evolution of these incidents compared with that of characters. Certain episodes, he says, are very stable because they are crucial to the story, but there are lots of other details that can evolve quite freely, he says. Yeah? Now take a look. Oh, wait. Neither did his analysis support the theory that the central section, the middle section, right, the middle part of the story, of a story, is the most conserved part. So central section is not the most important section in the story, right, is what he says. Now let's take a look. Contrary to other beliefs, he found, right, Tehrani found that some episodes, right? Some events or some incidents, which are also events, were included in a story tended to change over time. Yeah, so you see, that is, events, yeah, that were included, changed over time, and that the middle of the story seemed no more important than other parts. So the central part is not that important, yeah. Certain events can change, can evolve, right, easily. So he found no significant rate of evolution of those incidents. Certain episodes are very stable, yeah, but there are lots of other details that can evolve very quickly. So you see details, episodes, incidents. Those are all synonyms to the word events. All right. Then he was also surprised, you see, surprised that part of a story which seemed to provide some sort of something were unimportant. So certain parts that provide certain sort of information were unimportant. So those parts were unimportant. Unimportant could be, well, not important or trivial. Yeah, another good synonym for that is trivial that I always use in my speaking. So, and he was surprised, yeah, maybe he was amazed or shocked. So let's take a look. All right. But the really big surprise came when he looked at the cautionary element of the story. Cautionary element. Studies on hunter-gatherers folk tales suggest that narrative means stories. Stories include really important information about the environment and the possible danger that may be faced there. Stuff that is relevant to survival. So some certain information that is relevant to survival. Yet, in his analysis, such elements were just as flexible as seemingly trivial, unimportant details. What then is important enough to be reproduced from generation to generation, right? So his main question is, if central part is not important, like the middle of a story, the whole part when everything, but a lot of action, right, is not important because it can easily change, so it can easily alter, then cautionary message, they said that cautionary, oh, by the way, take a look. You see, the universal appeal said the cautionary message is the reason for the survival of the stories. Why stories are still here, why Flo's fairy tales are still here. But he said that no, those stories, those cautionary message of the stories doesn't really matter. So it's not the reason why they survive. That's why it is 100% B. Techani rejects the idea that the useful lessons for the life in fairy tales are the reason for their survival. All right. So then he's asking the question, like, if it's not that, what might be the reason? Why do we still read those same basically fairy tales, that slightly changed? So cautionary message, cautionary element, is trivial. So some sort of ending, no. Horror, no, because cautionary message is not the horror. Records, no. Provide some sort of people, doesn't make sense. Warning, yes. So warning, cautionary message, well, caution is the synonym of the word warning. So it's gotta be C then. The aspect that he found most important in a story's survival was what? Plot, records, people, ending, or horror. So why or what is the most important part of the story that helps the story to survive? What's that? We need to know that. Let's take a look. So here's the question, so why they are here? And the answer is fear. Bloodthirsty and gruesome aspects of the story, such as eating off the grandmother by the wolf, turn out to be the best preserved of all. You see, this is very, very strange, That's a fairy tale aimed at little kids, right? And the main story why the fairy tale is still here is that because of this bloodthirsty and gruesome aspects, very horrible and intimidating aspects, and the answer is horror. So the most important part that's helped the story to survive is horror, which is quite controversial, I would say, because the kid is reading that, and no comments, right? No comments. All right, seems like we're done with that. We're done with this one, so we're just left with multiple choice, right? Now, what method did Jamie Tehrani use to test his idea about fairy tales? Well, he used this biological method and the stuff like that. But let's keep reading. I think it must be somewhere here. So why are these details retained by generation of storytales when other features are not? Tehrani has an idea. In oral context, a story won't survive because of one great teller. it also needs to be interesting when it's told by someone who is not necessarily a great storyteller. You see, like if you want a story to be good, the one who tells the story needs to tell the story in a very interesting way. Yeah. But Tehrani says, not all of us are good storytellers. Yeah. That's why we need certain features that can be easily told by anyone. Yeah. Maybe being swallowed whole by a wolf, then cutting out the stomach alive is so gripping that helps story remain popular no matter how badly it's told, which is quite interesting, I would say. Yeah. All right. The methods. Maybe I'm missing something because we get to the Jake Zipes, and it is basically question 38. Let's get back to the method he used. I think that they described the method here, the analysis, right? So phylogenetic analysis, he tested certain assumptions. Yeah, tested the idea, they borrowed the technique. Compare related versions of fairy tales. Now let me read the options again. Typically we don't really read the options, but we've discussed, like we've analyzed that part already. Now I think we can easily read the options. So he compared oral and written forms of the same stories. I think it's not the case because he didn't compare written stories. He took oral stories mostly because those stories were originally like spoken rather than written. So we can eliminate A because it's false. He looked at many different forms of the same basic story. Yes, he took 58 variations of the same story. That's a lot of stories. So perhaps this could be A, could be B. Then he looked at unrelated stories from many different countries. No, he deliberately was searching for links, yeah, for relations between those stories. So it's not C for sure, it's completely false. He contrasted the development of fairy tales with that of living creatures. I think it's completely not given because he didn't compare development of fairy tales with the development of living creatures. Yes, he borrowed technique. Yeah, he used the technique. He borrowed technique from biology, but it doesn't mean that he contrasted the development of fairy tales with the development of animals. No, he just used the same technique to find out the evolution of those fairy tales. That is the point. Yeah, so we can eliminate D because it is complete false and we're just left with B, and B is the only answer. All right, when discussing Tehrani's views, Jack Zipes suggests something, right? So Jack Zipes tells his thoughts to us. Let's read what he says. Jack Zipes is unconvinced by Tehrani's views, so like he rejects the ideas, and he says, even if they are gruesome, they won't stick unless they matter. Yeah, he says, like, even if they're gruesome, even if they're horrible, the stories won't be here. They won't stick, right? They won't be here unless the stories actually matter. Like, unless we really need the stories, they won't be here. And he believes the perennial theme. Perennial is long-lasting, yeah, long-lasting or eternal, or something which is forever, right? Forever, like really forever. That's perennial. Yeah, it's not for short time, it's for long time. So perennial theme of women as victim in stories like Little Red Riding Hood explains why they continue to feel relevant. Wow. I think he's anti-feminist or something. So he says that women played victims And that's why it feels relevant, because women are still victims. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Who am I to judge? Anyways, so let's read the options now. So Jack suggests that Tehrani ignores the key change in role of women. No, he didn't say that the Tehrani ignores the change in the role of women. He didn't even talk about the change. I mean, yeah, he mentioned that women were victims back in the days, and they are still victims because, well, he said it feels relevant. Right? It feels relevant today because, well, he basically said that women are victim. Women are victim. Yeah. Then suggest that stories which too horrific are not always taken seriously. Well, this part is completely not given, so we can eliminate this one. Then C, suggests that Tehrani overemphasizes the importance of violence in the stories. Maybe, but he didn't really said that, no, Tehrani, like, you were focusing too much on the violence. Violence is not the point. No, he didn't say that in particular, so we can eliminate this one. Suggest that features of the story only survive if they have deeper significance, right? He said it here. Yeah. Even if they're gruesome, right? He admitted, like, yes, some stories are very horrible, yeah? I mean, terrific, yeah? Not just horrible, because horrible means bad. So some stories are very terrific, but they won't stick unless they matter. Yeah. So we need something significant, something deeper meaning, right? And if we have deeper meaning, then the stories would matter as well. So that's what the guy said. That's why we can choose D. Then why does Tehrani refer to Chinese and Japanese fairy tales? And why they're making Chinese and Japanese fairy tales? Let's take a look. So, but Tehrani points out that although this is often the case in Western versions, it's not always the true elsewhere. So sometimes you see what he said, that women are victims in Western versions, but it's not true in other countries. In Chinese and Japanese versions, often known as the tiger grandmother, the villain is the woman, and in both Iran and Nigeria, the victim is the boy. Yeah, you see, so it's not about gender, right? It's not gender related. That's why Tehrani showed Chinese and Japanese versions, yeah, where the villain is actually a woman. She's not a victim, she is a villain. And in Iran, in Nigeria, the victim is actually a boy, not a girl. So let's read the options. To indicate that Jake-Zappi's theory is incorrect, might be to suggest that crime is a global problem. No, it's not about crime. To imply that all fairy tales have similar meaning. No, it's not about that. It's not about similarity. It's about the differences. And to add more evidence to Jake-Zappi's ideas. Evidence means proof, but he's not like proving his ideas. He's actually rejecting ideas. He's like, no, Jack, your ideas are wrong. Like, do the research like I did. Study those 58 stories and then talk to me, right? So, yeah, it's not D, right? It's definitely A, because he said, like, no, man, you're wrong. Then, what does Matthew Klassen believe about fairy tales? You know, like, so many scientists, and like, they all talk about fairy tales. Don't they have a job to do? All right, so Klassen belief about fairy tales. So, Matthias Klassen at this university isn't surprised by Tehrani's findings. He says, habits and moral change, but the things that scare us and the fact that we seek out entertainment that designed to scare us, those are constant. Yeah, he says, it's not about habits, because habits and morals, they change over time. Yeah, he says, the morals change. But the things that scare us, something scary, something which is related to horror, to fear, to gruesome, right? This a part of our entertainment, and we seek it. Yeah, we want it. Yeah, we want something that scares us, and those are constant. Yeah, and Klassen believes that scary stories teach us what it feels like to be afraid without having to experience a real danger. You see, like, you want to feel what it's like to be, I don't know, to be a little girl who is in the forest trying to get to her grandmother, and then apparently grandmother eats the wolf, and not the grandmother eats the wolf, wolf eats the grandmother. Yeah, like you see many variations, like everything is mixing up in my mind. So yeah, you see, you want to experience this danger without experiencing the real danger in your life. Yeah, so you build up the resistance to negative emotions. Yeah, so you become stronger. You're like, no, I don't care about this. It's like, okay, I read the crazy story in my childhood when the wolf ate a woman alive. Yeah, so nothing can scare me now. So yeah, that's the point that Klassen brings. Yeah, I hope you guys understand the point. Right. What does the math in Klassen believe about fairy tales? They're a safe way of learning to deal with fear. Yeah, well, basically, that is the answer. They are a type of entertainment that some people avoid. No, we don't avoid, he said. We seek out those. That means we want those. So it's false, complete false. They reflect the changing values of our society. No, he didn't really talk about changing values or changing virtues, so we can eliminate this one. It's just not given. And they reduce our ability to deal with real world problems. They reduce our ability to deal with real world problems. They don't reduce, they actually prepare us, right? They build up resistance to those negative emotions. They prepare us for the real world problems. So it's complete false. And the only answer which is true is A. So that's one is one of my favorite, I think, readings so far, because it's quite interesting to read about the stories about fairy tales and just the history. I just love the history, and it's quite good for your knowledge. It's nice trivia. Yeah, so next time someone asks you or someone starts talking about the fairy tales and the stuff like that, you know what to answer. So, and you can definitely jump into conversation, be an expert, because, well, we know that we have Jamie Tekrani, who got us all covered with his nice research. So, yeah, nice. So I see you soon. I talk to you later, guys. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.